Hey everybody, what is going on? It's your boy izlogic.business, welcoming you to the LEC's first Teamfight breakdown. In today's game, we're going to be covering Astralis versus Vitality. And this matchup is actually very interesting because Astralis, new organization into the LEC, going up against a team that I expect to do very well in the LEC this year in Vitality. Now, without further ado, this intro's gone long enough. It's time to get into the smexy light show and go into Champion Select from there. Let's go. As the beats continue on, we get into Champion Select, ladies and gentlemen. Astralis are on the blue side, Vitality are on the red side, and well, we get a very interesting first ban phase here. As to me, Astralis ban out some basically red side champions and give over free bans to Vitality, which is a shock to me. But the bans that come through is Talia, Pantheon, and enquires for Astralis, and Vitality removed the Olaf, Dilution, and the Fiddle. Now, to me, I get why some of these champions are banned. Obviously, Talia and Pantheon, I would say go over to Vitality, and Vitality don't get to ban Dilution and the Fiddle. But instead, Astralis decide to ban out these red side bans. And the reason why they're red side bans is because usually these are first pick options for either team. And Olaf first pick is very strong. Talia first pick is extremely strong as well because you set the tempo on the map. Same with Olaf. And Pantheon's the same. He's just a constant ban in the current meta. But obviously these bans go over. They get banned out anyway, but I don't like it. Especially looking at the last ban from Vitality. To me, I feel this is a very big throwaway ban, because it leaves open Thresh, who could technically still be banned, and Thresh is a very strong pick in the current meta because you can just set up so much, but you ban out a Fiddle, and I've been looking at Zanzara's recent match history for pro play. He has not played a single game of Fiddle in his current, well, in 2020 or 2021. That's a big thing to know, and honestly, I don't know why Fiddle gets banned out here. It's kind of a waste of a ban to me, but unless Vitality have seen things in scrims that I'm unaware of, or is unaware of to the public, then that's probably why we see the Fiddle ban, but everything else is kind of standard. I like the Lucian ban. It removes that strong AD pick in mid lane who just bullies lane, and it gives you a bit more agency for Milika to actually put some pressure onto the map. So, let's get into our first round of actual picks. Astralis, give Nukeduck some playmaking tools. TF is locked in. He is going to be roaming around this map quite heavily, using the Destiny to create plays across the map, as well as having that point and click stun in the gold card. He can basically dictate the tempo of this game, and that's something you need, and I like this for Astralis. Nukeduck is the captain. He is the guy who's kept on this roster to basically carry these rookies, give them the motivation to perform and do well. As such, giving him a playmaker to give these rookies opportunities is a huge thing, and it's why I like this pick considerably. As for the response from Vitality, they go towards their top laner and their support. This to me is kind of a surprise because there's still technically options open for ADC, and I would realistically prefer that paired alongside the support instead of a top laner. But they go for this nonetheless, and it's a Gragas first locked for Vitality. Obviously, this pick has seen a lot of success in the LEC this year, and I feel it can do a lot of work depending on what we see go up in the top lane for Astralis. Obviously, it won't be something too strong, but there is technically the Renekton up and available that can still do a lot of work, and it's basically the Azir Orianna matchup of the top lane. It's something that we see almost pretty much every game, and I think it's a fairly even matchup in terms of win rates. As a support pick, I like it. It's a Thresh. Thresh does work in the support role because he can provide a lot of safety to the lineup, and it's very, very nice because it does leave you good options for ADC, as you could basically go towards an Aphelios, you can go towards the Jhin, whatever is left for you, depending on what Astralis lock in. But I like these picks for Vitality. You got safety with the Thresh Lantern and engage with Thresh versus the TF, who's going to be engaging quite easily onto you, that can be predicted with the Destiny card stack that appears on the floor. You can throw your hook towards that and land an almost perfect hook every time. Response though from Astralis as their last two bans of phase 1 come through, Hecarim and Alistar. I like this, honestly, as you've got TF who can use the Destiny to teleport around, create plays, get behind enemies and use the gold card. He needs dive buddies, of course, to protect him. Alistar and Hecarim are great peeling targets for this Astralis lineup, and we're already seeing a more protective comp of the carries from Astralis here, as there's just a big bulky cow going to be in your face alongside the horse rider. It's a very powerful combination, one of which could win the game for Astralis here based off of their draft so far. Last pick of this game's first pick phase is the Aphelios that we talked about. This guy is rose back into prevalence thanks to the item changes. Obviously, Gale Force becoming an item is huge, as it grants ADCs that extra movement tool, as well as the fact that he's going to be paired up with a Thresh who can provide him a lot of safety. Aphelios is still technically situational, and what do I mean by that? Well, you need the right guns in order to maximize your team fighting output. The blue and white guns are what people know Aphelios for being good with in teamfights, because the blue gun gives a lot of AoE damage, as well as the Infernum ultimate it provides to the Moonlight Vigil. It just absolutely shreds opponents if they're clumped up together. As for the chakrams, the white gun, it's your best source of pumping out quick damage, and also zoning people away with the turret it creates. As such, I like this pick considerably for Vitality, and it's going to be quite hard for Astralis to break down. Second ban phase time now is my favourite time in drafts, because this kind of shapes how each team wants to end out these lineups. And for me, looking at these bans, the Camille and Samira removed by Vitality, and Astralis removing the Silas and the Jace. A lot of big target bans removing strong picks off the board. Camille is a very big pick for the top lane, as it would do quite well into the Gragas, who is going to do a lot of work there in just being harassing and being a bit of a bully with the AP threat that it provides. And Camille can just bully it back by using the hook shots to get easy stuns, dodging out on the cask if she's close enough with that Hexacle ultimatum, and realistically just being an absolute pain in the neck for a Gragas player, because she can do tons more damage than what a Renekton can. And that's kind of why we see that ban instead of the Renekton ban. Samira gets removed off the board as well, and I like that because you look at the rest of, well, the draft that's come through so far for Vitality. Graves, end of the line would get blocked. The Q would get blocked. His autos blocked. His smokescreen technically would be blocked by Samira. The death sentence blocked. Any Aphelios auto attack blocked by Samira's W, or the knockoff wind wall as people have called it before. But that's a great ban out of Vitality, not allowing any sort of strong pick for Jeskla to basically negate the effectiveness of the Aphelios. And realistically, Samira would be excellent with the rest of this Astralis lineup because she would look to dive into the backline alongside these dive-heavy champions. It's kind of why we've already seen the Kaiser ban come through, even though I would have expected that to have been picked up by Astralis instead. Last bans though to talk about are Astralis's. Silas is a good ban because he is kind of the match TF kind of champion. Why do I say that? Well, he can hijack the destiny from TF, and when TF goes to make a play with his ult, Silas can match it. That's the importance of that pick and why it gets removed from the board here. Jace is also removed, and you're probably wondering why. Well, it's a strong pick for Milika, though I don't think it would be too impactful, obviously with the fact that they would be drafting very heavily into AD, obviously with the Aphelios locked in and possibilities of a AD jungler because Gragas is the AP pick in the top lane. I think that having an AD mid laner wouldn't be the best here for Vitality, so this ban does make some sense because you removed that very strong pick for Milika, but you also aren't thinking about the damage outputs that Vitality would have if that gets locked in. And finally, we round out these drafts in a very dominant style here for us, as we've got 4 picks to go over, and it's the AD jungler pickup for Vitality, as Skeens is getting his hands on the Graves here. And originally when I read my notes, I thought this was their first pick, and it would have made a bit more sense than the Gragas here, honestly, but who cares. Well, let's talk about Graves. Very strong scaling jungler that's AD. Matches well with the Gragas, as you can kind of focus towards the top lane and try to bully it. That's kind of what I'm expecting to come out of Vitality here, whether or not that happens. Furthermore, Graves gets a massive power spike on 2 items with the Collector. The ability to execute targets off just grows incredibly high with that item, and it is a very strong thing to get for a Graves player, and you're just realistically looking to outscale the opponent, obviously going against a Hecker. I would say Graves will outscale Hecarim just a bit more. Hecarim becomes a bit more of a tankier target in the late game, whereas Graves builds a bit more damage, and that is where the outscaling comes in for the jungler. As for the response though, to finish out the Astralis draft, Jhin and Ornn. 2 strong picks in my opinion. Jhin just does a lot of work. He hasn't got the added safety of the Thresh, but he does have the Alistar, who's there to put damage. And it's interesting, this draft for Astralis, because it's kind of a protect the Jhin slash TF comp here. More specifically, protect the Jhin and just dive the backline sort of comp. That's how Astralis are playing, because Jhin can sit very far back as an ADC and be very safe and pump out a lot of damage in fights. Obviously, you've got the Deadly Flourish as your long-range stun. You've also got the Curtain Call, which is long-range poke and executing ability. And that is a big thing to note, because you're going to have the rest of your team basically mosh pitting on the Vitality lineup, who are going to be relying on a lot of safety from that Thresh. What's more, alongside the Jhin lock-in was the Ornn. Ornn provides a lot more utility nowadays with the masterwork items, instead of the Iron Forged, whatever they were used to be called. Basically, these things are very useful. You provide a lot more strength to your carries, and interestingly enough, you've got a bit more hard engage for this Astralis lineup, and when I say that, it's a bit more of ranged engage. That's something they kind of want to do if they want to get in close to these champions that will be basically very easily getting away on the dark passage of Threshers, so you can just use the Call of Forge God as a bit more long in range engage to stun them up, allow the Hecarim to chase down the target that's basically getting away, and then just execute them off. It's a very strong comp that Astralis have that basically have all pieces working together in order to basically succeed. And as the last pick comes in for Vitality of the LeBlanc, I'm not too sure that will help the Vitality draft as much as they think, because looking at the draft they've got, LeBlanc wants to go in. Graves is a bit more fighty, and in the late game where he can just poke you a bit more and firing shots here and there, that's how he likes to fight. Gragas, a lot of disengage / engage and a lot of damage. Aphelios, a lot of damage. They've got the damaging champions, but whether or not they can survive the burst and the dive coming in from Astralis is yet to be seen, and that's kind of their goal, is to avoid that. And if they can survive the initial engage, basically fight back against the Astralis lineup is the goal for Vitality. Anyway, draft done with. One thing left to do, that's play the intro to the Teamfight Breakdown, baby! So, in our last Anarchy analysis, Teamfight Breakdown, we looked at how to set up for a Drake, and more specifically, the part of getting picks beforehand, allowing you to transition into an objective. And well, we never really looked at how you can counter it, and there's a lot of things that you can do, and the first thing you could in theory do is give up lane pressure on that side of the map that you're on, and reset, and then just give the Drake over to the enemy team so you're not losing team members, and in an essence, just allowing the rest of your team to make pressure on the other side of the map, go for plays there, and try and get the goal back that you're losing from the Drake. That's one thing. The other is baiting. And in this play that we're going to be breaking down, there's a lot of baiting out from one side. And we start up with a kind of a bait from Zanzara, whose Hecarim gets hooked by Lebrov, and immediately he's forced to Onslaught of Shadows out of there. He's saying, nope, I do not want to be killed under turret. I'm too valuable. I'm the jungler. I have smite. So he nopes out of there, removing one big major team fighting ultimate from the upcoming skirmish. Then, I guess you would say Astralis capitalize on that kind of catch out of their jungler, as it allows Promiscu to sneak in behind the two Vitality members stuck under turret and go for a headbutt, knocking the Aphelios of comps into a succulent CC chain. He then is given an early shower as he's sent back to the fountain, and Astralis then turned towards the Drake. With full vision of the jungler and the support of Vitality, Astralis then also decide to make a play for Lebrov. And this is very interesting because technically Vitality could go for a play called the Lantern Steal, as I like to call it. In essence, the jungler goes dashing into the pit, tries to smite steal it away from the opponent, and then takes the dark passage to safety thanks to the Thresh Lantern. That could be one play that Vitality did to secure their second Drake, and Astralis know this. They immediately tried to go for that same CC chain onto Lebrob's Thresh. However, he's able to escape over the wall with a sliver of health, and that puts Promiscu in a bad space because he is now in the middle of the rest of the Vitality squad who have roamed down from wherever they were in order to try and contest this Drake. And in essence, it's a 1-for-1 trade at that point, except it still favors Astralis as there's such low health bars on the Vitality lineup, and they know it. So, Vitality, who go back to the tier 1 turret where Comp was killed off, decide to, well, I would say, punish the greed out of Astralis by, in essence, having 6 tower shots drain the HP bars of the Ornn and the Hecarim, giving over 2 more kills to the Vitality lineup, and on top of that, Jhin is somehow on the wrong side of the map for this play, and he's in Vitality territory now, and is just given up to the LeBlanc, giving her more and more kills, feeding the mid laner, as well as that. It ends in a 4-for-3 trade in favor of Vitality, and they secure for themselves a very nice dragon. Now, I want to end this video by discussing these two teams as a whole, because coming into this year, I put a lot of expectations on both lineups. I predicted Astralis to make playoffs and Vitality to be contesting for them, because I'll be honest, my LEC predicted table isn't the best looking, because I thought Vitality shouldn't be in 9th, and yet I've got them in 9th. So that's a bit of an issue. I think these two teams could contest for playoffs. That's my statement here. And in this game, we saw a lot of greed out of Astralis, looking constantly for picks. That's something that they're doing, is trying to create plays. And it worked for them in the end because they were able to pick up the win by getting a couple of these picks around the Baron Pit and then transitioning up the mid lane for a win. Whereas Vitality, I'll be honest, are investing a lot of time into Comp. They're trying to get him to be the superstar ADC that I see him as. He's very good as an ADC player. And they're investing a lot of the gold into him. The Rift Heralds are being dropped for him. Turret plates given over to him. He gets so much gold for this lineup. And whether or not they capitalize on it is kind of a coin toss, really, is what I'm trying for here. As they've not succeeded in some games like this one where they do that because they get caught out of position, and that gives over the gold to the other team, and they're just able to punish very easily. Anyway, that's the end of my ramble on. I've had to record this 3 or 4 times now, and I'm not happy that I've had to. If you've enjoyed this episode, leave a like down below. Subscribe if you're new around here if you want to. And I will see you guys for next week's Teamfight breakdown, which, if I check my notes, is on Misfits and SK and the lock-in tournament finals. See you guys then.